All right, we are here on another episode. Today I'm here with Jess. Actually, I'll let her explain because you literally just transitioned, you rebranded, so I don't want to introduce it as one thing and people get confused. So, Jess, welcome to the show. We appreciate your time taken to take out for the day and to be with us and speak to us a little bit about what you do and the services that you do. So, yeah, please explain what you do and your company.
Thank you so much for having me on and for all your listeners for listening. My company just rebranded from Scrap University Kids to Recycling is Like Magic. And we just love to teach kids and basically everybody that all metal can be recycled and that it has value. And if you never throw your metal in the trash and you actually take it to one of your local scrap yards, they'll pay you for it. So it's a win-win because you help the planet and you help your piggy bank at the same time. And I'm here in Seattle, Washington, so up in the Pacific Northwest. But we teach, we do recycling programs all over the country.
Nice. Now, so I know when people think of recycling, they don't necessarily think of metal, I guess, in most cases, because I mean, we were always taught cardboard, plastic, paper, those types of
Yes.
things. And maybe this is kind of a deep question, but I don't think people really, maybe including myself, like, what is the significance? Like, what is the big impact right now that metal is having on our Earth and our
Yeah.
environments?
So we try to focus on aluminum cans. I mean, we talk about all metal, but just aluminum cans alone are pretty amazing because it takes 95% less energy, greenhouse gases, to make a new can out of recycled aluminum. And aluminum cans can be recycled forever, which is amazing because plastic can unfortunately only be recycled a few times depending on like the grade of plastic. And then it starts breaking down to microplastics and all other things. But metal is amazing because you just melt it down, and it reshapes, like you can reshape into any other thing and then like make it into a new thing. And so it's just so much better to use recycled aluminum than like mining the bauxite out of the earth again and then turning it into aluminum and all of that. So and just it's same with all the other kind of metals. So I know a lot of people are always talking about like stealing copper wiring and all that stuff, but which is we don't want to encourage that, but we also don't want people to throw like their headphones in the garbage or their Christmas lights or their wires, because all of those wires have copper and aluminum inside. And so people don't even think about it. But for a can is like the easiest thing to recycle. Well, as long as you can, if there's a recycle bin around. If there's no recycle bin, you have to like squish them and keep them and take it to your local scrapyard and they'll pay you for it by the pound. If you do have like access to a curbside recycling bin, then they say don't squish them just because it's easier for them to pick out a can from the line. But if you're going to take it to a scrapyard, it's kind of fun to jump on your cans, crush them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Now you do a lot of work in the oceans and the waters.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, how that blends together?
Yeah, so I started this company back in 2022 because I'm a scuba diver here in Seattle, Washington. I usually dive about 2 or 3 times a week. I started diving up here in 2014, and unfortunately, that's when the sea star wasting disease started. So all of our sea stars on the whole West Coast just started dying. We used to have these huge sunflower sea stars that have like 26 arms or legs. They're just amazing, and they used to be everywhere. And ochre sea stars that come in like bright purple and orange, or like a peach color. And when I started diving, it was so sad because we used to have them around and then like they started like losing their arms, would fall off, and then they would just turn into like a pile of goo. And it was just so sad seeing these amazing creatures just die right in front of my eyes. And there's just so much garbage in the oceans. And so I started doing underwater photography after 100 dives. And then I started doing cleanup dives and just trying to get as much garbage out of the oceans as I can. We usually focus on like one dive site where a boat launches. That's usually where we see the most trash, because I think a lot of people like throw all the stuff off their boat before they take it out of the launch. Or we have huge tidal exchanges here, like 18 feet exchange from low tide to high tide. And so people like on a low tide day will go out there onto the beach and have their lunch, and then they leave all their garbage, and then the tide comes in, and so all that stuff goes out to the ocean. And so that's kind of what inspired me to like quit my job. I was at Evergreen Shipping for 15 years, shipping containers all over the world in big cargo ships, and I shipped a lot of recycled commodities. Our top 3 exports of the US are waste paper, plastic scrap, and metal scrap. And so I was shipping all these containers of metal, but I didn't really know like what was in the container or understand what it was. And one of my favorite customers, Brad, who's now my business partner, he hired me. He ships used car batteries all over the world to be recycled. And so I called him one day and I was like, are you hiring? Or actually, the whole thing that started it was he asked me how my weekend was. And I sent him a picture of all the garbage I got out of the ocean. And there was all this metal there, like old rusty chains, crab pots, fishing hooks, cans, and obviously tons of plastic and other stuff and tires. There's so many tires. And he's like, you know, you can recycle all of that metal, right? And then I felt like a huge idiot because I'm like, I know cans and bottles and like paper and plastic, like we were talking about, but I feel like metal just got so overlooked. And where I grew up in Utah, nobody recycles anything. You just like pay to take it to the landfill and dump it. And he's like, no, Jess, like all of that metal, even if it's rusty, it doesn't matter. Like put it in a bucket, whatever, take it to the scrapyard and they'll pay you for it. And I'm like, okay, I feel like a total idiot. So I was like, I don't even know, like I didn't even know about this. And I'm like, if I didn't know about this, probably a lot of people don't know about this. And the reason I wanted to start with kids is because when I dive, it's usually at the boat launch. It's actually right next to an aquarium, a free aquarium. And so I put all of my ocean treasure, my loot, out on a big tarp. And then all these kids are in the parking lot. They all run over and they're like looking through all my treasures. And they're like, where did you find this? And I'm like, right there in the ocean. And so I was just like, well, I didn't learn this in school as a kid. Like, so I'm just teaching all these little kids, like in a fun way, like, look at this and you can actually recycle this. And so that's kind of what sparked my company.
Nice. No,
Yeah.
that's great because I mean, I think I always knew that you could recycle that stuff, but it doesn't like really resonate. It didn't connect, you know? And I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of people. But that's interesting because you mentioned like Christmas lights and you mentioned, you know, headphones and all that stuff that
Headphones and
people just don't
things.
think about that. They just throw them in the trash, and I'm guilty of it too because again, I
Yeah.
think it's just because you don't know. And then I think other people more along the lines of like, well, I got to go through it's the effort
Yeah, the
and you got
effort,
to
and
take it
people are
down
lazy
there.
or they're really busy and they don't
Yeah,
have time. It's not like right in front of your face. You're not going to do it. And then even if it
right.
is right in front of your face, even though I go on walks every day and clean up trash and I'm picking up cans and all those, like I pick up 60 cigarettes this morning on my block, but I go into the recycle bin to put the can in there and there's all this garbage. And then I open up the garbage to put the cigarettes in. And then there's like cans in the garbage. So people are just so confused about it. And even if it's like right in front of your face, like they just, I don't know. We need to make it easier and we need to teach kids like from a very young age, like what you can recycle and how to do it and like in a fun way. And so that is kind of why we started the Million Cans Recycling Contest, or we have a program too, but we basically team up elementary schools with the local scrapyard. And we have the scrapyard bring a large like roll-off bin or some Gaylord boxes, whatever they can part with for a little while to the elementary school parking lot so that usually everybody knows where the school is in town. And so it's kind of on their way to do errands or whatever. So they could just bring a bag of cans to the school or like a box of wires. Everybody has a box of wires in their closet that they've had forever and they know what to do with, right? So it's like, it's a win-win because the schools get to keep all the money from the wires and the cans and everything they recycle. The scrapyard will just pay it to the school. So then it's like you're doing your spring cleaning and you're helping the planet and you're helping the school.
Nice. So you mentioned you work nationally, right?
Yeah. Well, I just did a can recycling contest at 8 elementary schools across the country. So it actually Waco, Texas, our school in Texas had the most cans. They had 430,000 cans. We did from October through mid-May. And I had Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, South Carolina, 2 schools in Kentucky, a school in Pennsylvania. And it was just kind of a test program pilot that we set up with Can Manufacturers Institute, which is a trading association in Washington, D.C., and they represent all the largest aluminum can companies. So they do like Novelis, Triaros, Constellium, just like Kaiser Aluminum, all the people that make the aluminum that we use in our cans and our tinfoil and our cars and our airplanes. They want their cans back because it's so much better for the planet to use the recycled aluminum. And so they sponsored my can contest and they bought copies of my book, The Girl Who Recycled 1 Million Cans, for all of the 3rd graders at those 8 schools. So all of those kids got the book to take home to read with their friends and families and then get everybody excited about looking for cans in their town. And then the kids went and read to all of the other grades in the school. So everybody at the school heard the story and then the whole school is collecting cans. And they actually did it. They recycled over 1.3 million cans in 8 months. And they made over $21,000 for their schools from the scrapyards paid out for those cans. So at first I was like, what happens if they only get like 10 cans? Like I was having nightmares before the contest started. Because I'm like, I'm asking these scrapyards for a huge favor to like donate their trucking and the bin and all this stuff. And like, these are I focused on areas of the country that have very low recycling rates. Like most of those average about 15%. They only recycle about 15% of cans.
Mm.
And the national average is 45%, which is just so sad since aluminum can be recycled forever. We only recycle 45% of cans, and most of that is from the 10 states that have a deposit. So like Michigan, they actually get they pay the 10 cents when they buy the drink, but then they get it back. So they're more incentivized to return the cans. But in like Texas or Washington State, where I live, we don't have a deposit. So you have to take it to the scrapyard if you actually want to cash it in, or you could just be a good person to put in a recycle bin. So we're going to actually expand the contest. We're going to start back up in October. We're going to do 15 or 16 schools, and we're going to call it the 2 million can recycling contest this time. We're going to try to get to 2 million. And I'm going to expand to a couple more schools in Texas too. I'm going to try to get one near Dallas, one near San Antonio, and then Waco. And then I think there's another, what the heck, Odessa, Texas. I'm not sure even where that is, but so just trying to expand the program, and everybody can help, like veterans, just everybody like has huge social networks and contacts. And if they want to go like just search for cans in their neighborhood and stuff and bring it to the local school and help the kids, like it's just a fun thing that everybody can do.
Nice. Well, that's really awesome. Now when we think about when people always hear about the ocean problems, everybody thinks about plastic. How significant is the metal problem in the oceans?
I mean, it's just so hard to say because I don't really know how to even measure it because the oceans are so huge. But most of the fishing gear is made out of plastic and metal. So like fishing pots, like the crab pots, the fishing hooks, the lines. I mean, it's just, and it just sits down there forever. And the sad part about the metal is like, I don't know if it's like leaching as much chemicals as like the plastic or the tires and the resin and all that. But, the sad part is that like that metal can be reused forever. Like if it gets out of the ocean, they can melt it down and turn it into something new again. So it just helps like the greenhouse gases that way by like reusing it. So I don't know if like, I mean, some of it is probably toxic and leaching things, but I'm not a scientist. I haven't done all the studies on that, but I'm also part of the Washington Scuba Alliance, which is a group of scuba divers here in Seattle area. And we are trying to get all of the tires out of the ocean. Or out of the Puget Sound. There's actually like over 500,000 tires that the government sunk back in the 1970s to make artificial fishing reefs. They just dropped like clusters of 1,000 tires all over the place, and they didn't mark it on a map or anything. They just dumped them overboard, and they're like, oh, this is going to be good for the fish. It's going to make it easier for fishermen to find fish or whatever. But unfortunately, over time, like the ropes and the things that they use to bundle the tires together have degraded, and then like the tires have like rolled all over the place with the currents and everything. And so there's just every dive site we go to has tires. They're just everywhere. So and those are leaching chemicals, so we're trying to get those out too.
Wow, I had no idea about the tires.
And they're in Florida, they're in Guam, they're in Hawaii. Basically, any body of water that you go in is probably gonna have tires.
I guess I don't know. I guess I didn't know the government did that back then. Of course, I wasn't around back then, but
I wasn't around back then either. But now we need to get permits from everyone to try to get the tires out. We need like the city, the state, federal, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Ecology, Department of Natural Resources, and then the Indian tribes, like the Native Americans too, because they own part of the waterfront. We don't want to do anything to we want to work with them and make sure we're not like being like, you guys need to do this. Like, no, we all need to do this. Like, these are our oceans. These are our sea creatures. Like they need help now. So
for sure.
But it's just crazy that like they just dumped all these things in without probably getting a permit. Now we need to get like 15 permits to get the ocean.
I know, it's crazy.
And then so
you don't need to, I mean, you probably break, laws or international laws when you're dumping stuff in, but then you got to jump through all the hoops to try to clean it. It's like, I don't know.
It's just crazy. And then we want to, instead of just pulling any, like if there is any kind of sea creatures attached to the tires, usually there's not too much on there, like an anemone or maybe like a sea star or some, mostly barnacles, but we're going to try to like pull the tires up to like 10 feet of water, something not super deep, and dive down there and scrape off and like save any of the sea creatures that we can and move them to an actual rock reef so that we're not just like pulling all, if there are any animals. But usually the tires don't have much growing on them. Sometimes you'll find like some crabs hiding inside or whatever, but
man, that's crazy. Wow. Okay, so you work with a lot of organizations, schools around the country. Do you go out and usually try to seek them out? Do they come to you? Like
Um,
how does that
lately I mean, the
partnership
first
work?
time around, I was just doing a lot of cold calling and we were focusing on areas near the can making companies so that they all kind of sponsored a school and they could go like, read to the kids and teach them about how the can making process works. And then I like to have people from the scrapyard go in and talk about what they actually do at the scrapyard and how they use the baler and the shredder and all that stuff. But yeah, I was just basically cold calling schools. But this time, now that we got like some press, we got a lot of local news coverage and we're doing it again. I've actually just had a school in Pittsburgh call me yesterday and saying like, yes, we want to be in your contest. Like, is it
Nice.
so like that's so much easier if the schools approach me because they're kind of
Yeah.
the hardest part to get because teachers are so busy and overworked and like teaching so many important life lessons that they
Right.
don't have like extra time to add like one more thing to their plate. And that's why we want to try to make it super simple and easy as possible. Like scrapyard brings the bin, all you guys need to do is fill it up and then you get the money. So
Nice.
yeah. So
Okay.
if more
Wow.
schools want to do it though, like I mean, we can find some sponsors to buy books to give to the kids so they get a prize and they can go home and read it and stuff. But or even just like find companies just buy like a couple books to donate to the school library if they don't want to buy one for like every single student, whatever works. We're very flexible. But
Gotcha.
yeah, if schools want to be in our contest, like that's the best thing. I feel like every single city needs to have one, like
Yeah.
just because I'm trying to get Utah, like my old elementary school where I went to when I was a kid. I just went back a couple weeks ago to visit my parents, and there was still no recycle bins anywhere. The only recycle bin
Wow.
I saw the entire time I was there was at the airport. And so like at the
That's
hospital, the
crazy.
restaurants, the stores, like no can recycling anywhere, no blue bins or green bins or whatever. So
Jeez.
yeah, there's
Crazy.
a lot of work to be done.
And it's 2024. Like people have been
I know,
talking about this for like centuries, or not centuries, decades.
I know, and it's just
That's
like, and I
crazy.
like to tell the kids like it's the easiest way to help our oceans, just recycling
Right.
cans because of the 95% less energy. Like that's a huge cut in greenhouse emissions. And so even if you're not near the ocean, you can still help just by recycling. So, um,
Gotcha.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we're just focusing on the metal part just because I feel like it gets overlooked, and then
Mhm.
the fact that you actually make money doing it is an added bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity. So if businesses, brands, and companies they want to help get involved and they want to sponsor or partner with you guys,
Yeah.
one, how would they do that? And then two, what's the best way to reach out to you and connect with you?
My new website is recyclingislikemagic.com. So you can go there, you can click around, read about our books. They're printed in the USA by Book Baby, New Jersey. We wanted them to be made locally. And then on the Million Cans page, you can see like all the past schools and see pictures of the kids recycling and the news stories. And then you can also email me at jess@scrapuniversity.com. And I'd be more than happy to jump on a call, answer any questions. But yeah, we had like the Boy Scout troops saving cans for our school in
Oh,
Texas,
cool.
and in Mississippi we had like an old folks home down the street, and they asked to keep the bin. Actually, no, it was Alabama. They asked to keep the bin all summer long, even after the contest was over, because now everybody in the community knows where to bring their cans, and so they're still collecting cans all summer to cash in. And I just think it'd be so cool to get like some retired military people in there and just like even just the
Oh yeah.
military. I don't even know if the bases recycle. Like I just think that like if an admiral somewhere, like some head guy is like, you guys are
Yeah.
ordered to recycle your cans, and then they can save all those cans and cash them in for like local schools on the bases or whatever. That would be pretty cool. I don't
Yeah.
know get that going, but I think that would be amazing.
I think some bases do. When I was in, this was a long time ago. But if I recall, I believe that some of them do. I couldn't speak for all of them because I never was stationed at every single one of them.
Yeah.
But I believe some of them do, and that would be a good opportunity, possibly for your company, is to get in with the government somehow and present that because everybody talks about like we
Yeah.
talked before is the plastics, the
Paper. Yeah.
paper and all those other common things that people recycle and
Yeah.
cans, aluminum cans. I think everybody knows about aluminum cans, but
Yeah.
the other metals, I don't think is what a lot of people know. And you want to talk about metal in the military,
Mhm. Oh no, I'm
right?
sure they have
Right?
so much metal there. So it's like every
Yeah,
base should just have like a roll off bin, fill it up, and then they can just
yeah,
pass it in once a month. Like,
right.
yeah, it's a huge money making opportunity for anybody
Yeah,
that wants
big
to help
time.
get involved. So,
Yeah.
oh, and then one last thing, I met a really awesome veteran at West Seattle the other day. I always go
Nice.
out and do cleanups on the beach too, or underwater, and he was out there with his little claw thing and his safety vest, and he says that he's a retired Coast Guard guy, and he
Mm,
is in a group called Random Acts of Cleanup, and it's all
Nice.
retired veterans that go out and clean up beaches and parks. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing ever. So
Oh, that's cool.
there's fun. He says his wife enjoys it too because it gets him out of the house for a few hours, get
Yeah.
some fresh air, and he's just out there cleaning up. And it
Yeah.
just, you feel so good after you do a cleanup. Like it just makes you, because you know that you helped the planet. So
Right, right. And you can actually see your work by looking at the pile of trash in
at
front
the
of you.
pile, yeah, totally. And I'm always like counting my cigarettes every day. Like I think the most I got in one day was 300. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. And the bad thing about cigarettes is that they're so lightweight, and whenever it rains, they just go right into the storm drain and right into the water supply. So it's just terrible. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to quit smoking, but if you could just put them in like a cup or a jar or something, and then just put it in the garbage can, because cigarettes actually have like a little plastic filter, so that goes right into the ocean. So
yeah,
man,
so much work, but
so much work. But yeah, check out our website too. We have coloring pages, worksheets, a free metal recycling class for kids, so anybody can take that anywhere in the world. We have it in English and Spanish. I just translated it all in Spanish. So
very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jess, thank you so much for taking your time out today to speak to us and educate us a little bit, including myself. I learned quite a bit, and we all know that the wastage problem around the world is huge and significant, but I don't think we really see it because it's not something that we actually see each and every day. But for somebody like yourself who's out there and you literally see it, it's a bigger issue than I think a lot of us realize. So we appreciate people like you and everybody else that's out there doing these things and trying to spread awareness and work with a bunch of different organizations to help try to make the planet a better place, you know, for our kids and everything. So thank you for that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time and for all your listeners' time. And one other thing I forgot to cover: tinfoil.
Oh yeah.
Tinfoil balls. So like if you when you open your yogurt or your sour cream, if you just rinse off the food and like your Hershey Kiss wrappers, and you just start squishing those into a ball. Once they're about volleyball size, you could put it in your curbside recycling. But if you want to just keep making a bigger, huger ball, like I think every school should make like see how big of a tinfoil ball they can get. The scrapyard will actually pay you for that by the pound also. So
interesting.
Just a random
thought of that.
Random thing I always like to bring up on things because I think people always forget about tinfoil.
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, we'll start doing that too. So
yeah.
Interesting. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all so much. All and if you ever come up to Seattle, I'd love to show you around. So just
awesome. Sounds good. Take care. Bye.
Bye.